Hey, welcome to Church Experience. Thank you so much for spending part of your weekend with us. Now is a great time to grab your pens and weeklies and head to your seats if you haven't already, because the service starts in 90 seconds.
Hey, welcome to Church Experience Online. We are so happy that you're here with us today. We're about to worship and get into God's Word, and we believe that today is going to be spiritually impacting and move you closer to a full life in Jesus Christ. But before we jump into today's service, I want to encourage you to take a quick minute and hit that subscribe button so that you never miss a service. And also, either right now or right after the service, share this with somebody that you love so that they don't miss out on what God has planned for them as well. Well, let's go ahead and jump into today's worship, and let's see what God has for us today.
Your kingdom come, we will cling to what you promised. mountain can't be moved. They say these chains will never break, but they don't know you like we do. There is power in your name. We've heard that there is no way through. We've heard the tide will never change. They haven't seen what you can do. There is power in your name. So much power in your name. Move the immovable, break the unbreakable. God, we believe. God, we believe for it. From the impossible, we'll see a miracle. God, we believe. God, we believe for it. We know that hope is never lost, for there is still an empty grave. God, we believe no matter what, there is power in your name. So much power in your name. Move the immovable, break the unbreakable. God, we believe. God, we believe for it. From the impossible, we'll see a miracle. God, we believe. God, we believe for it. You are the way when there seems to be no way. We trust in you, God, you have the final say. You are the way when there seems to be no way. We trust in you, God, you have the final say. You are the way when there seems to be no way. We trust in you, God, you have the final say. Move the immovable, break the unbreakable. God, we believe. God, we believe for it. From the impossible, we'll see a miracle. God, we believe. God, we believe for it. Move the immovable, break the unbreakable. God, we believe. God, we believe for it. From the impossible, we'll see a miracle. God, we believe. Yes, for it. Heavenly Father, God, we just love you. We believe that you can do a miracle. We believe that you are still the God of yesterday, today, and forever. So, Father, break every chain. Move the immovable. We put our faith and our trust in you. And we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Good morning. I'm Jennifer's husband. It's good to be with you. Thank you, Tim. I wanted to give a shout out to the worship team. You guys are doing such a great job. Thank you, Zach. Thank you, team. I know Zach is celebrating 10 years. I think it's coming up. Hey, Zach, you said 10 years married. Well done, brother. Well done. That's awesome. 10 years. It's all downhill from there, but no, it's not. It's not. I think your peak is, 7 years? No, I'm just kidding. No, I love being married. I love it. Don't you love being married if you are married? I love it. I think it's awesome. It's been amazing. But also just you realize, when you get married, there's highs and lows in life. And we were sitting with James yesterday with Rose and all that. And it's tough sometimes. But you know what? We keep going. And so this morning, who here is ready to meet with Jesus this morning? You guys ready? We're going to meet with Jesus this morning. And what we're doing is we're doing this Life Edit series. We started it last week. And what I did is I talked about legacy, about how God uses us to, when I think of Life Edits, I don't just want to do it for myself. I want to do it for those that are around me, those that are coming after me. That's for me is really what gets me excited, where it's not just about me, it's about those that I can help and shepherd and lead and whether it's in our family or others and in this church, whatever. And we started last week, but you can't watch it because we forgot to record it. So if you weren't here, I'm sorry. We just totally forgot to push record. You see what happens when you're not here, Chris can never leave the church again, ever, for a weekend. But we're in week 97 as a church plant. 97, hey? Do you remember the first year I was counting, and we kind of have stopped counting because I can only count up to 50, and then I realized that we're in week 97 today. And who here, if you were here last week, who here has been making their bed every morning and praying? That's what I mentioned last week. Last week I said, sometimes when we can do little things that can really make a huge impact over time. And one of the things that God just showed me is tell people to make their bed and pray every morning. And that's what we've been doing. And I encourage you guys to do it. If you didn't make your bed this morning, well, you've got time still. You can go. We'll wait, if you guys want to go and come back. No, but just jokes aside, what we're doing and what I felt God leading me in this series of Life Edits is to really talk about the life of Simon Peter. And when I think of Simon Peter, I think of the highs and the lows. I think of his journey. And really my goal is to kind of resonate with Simon Peter, but ultimately resonate with him in his journey and his relationship with Jesus and how that can change our journey with Jesus. And how does it look like for us to get closer to him? And so we started last week. This week, I'm really talking about him and really us about being flawed. We are flawed humans. All of us fail. All of us fall short of the glory of God. And then next week we're talking about being faithful, and the week after that about being a follower. And so flawed, faithful, follower. And so there's some things in America which I love. I love this country. But there's some things that I'm still learning, right? Like medical insurance. Medical insurance in this country is so complicated, but I think that's the point. I think they make it complicated so that you're like, I don't even know where to begin. I'll just accept it, right? Because we're like a few years into it and we still try to learn how medical insurance works and all this. But I think they intentionally make it hard because it's so complicated, so you just give up and do it, right? But there was a medical company in South Africa, and I get it. South Africa is a much smaller market and economy and all this, but there was this medical company that wanted to get its people more healthy, right? And so what they did is when fitness trackers started coming out and being popular, they said, well, listen, we'll give you discounts on things and give you some perks if you do certain things throughout the week. And how they started was, if you do 10,000 steps a day for a few times a week, we'll give you some perks, some discounts, some freebies and things like that. And so it sounds like a great idea with the best of intentions. What can possibly go wrong? Well, it didn't take us South Africans very long to kind of find a loophole because we thought that it was a bit flawed. And so what people were doing was just starting to put fitness trackers on their kids, on their dogs. And so, if you there was times where you're thinking, I need to get my 10,000 steps today because it's the end of the week, and if I don't, then I lose all my benefits. And so, little dog, okay, put the dog in it, gone. I mean, that dog would do 50,000 steps in a matter of a few hours, And so then Discovery started realizing, okay, hang on, this system is a bit flawed. And so they changed it to heart rate based and all the rest of it. But it was a great system. The idea was good, but it was flawed. It was flawed, and so they had to change it. And so, but one of the things that I love about America that would never work in South Africa is self-checkout. Like self-checkout would just not work in South Africa. The shelves would be empty, but no one would have paid. They'll be like, oh, this is so cool. I remember the first time we came to America and there was self-checkout at the Walmart. Remember? I was thinking, what is happening here? My first thought was, how do they know that I'm going to pay for everything? Like, Americans, you guys are too trusting. You know, like I would have been like, oh, I'll pay for one and keep the other one. That's how it would happen in South Africa. So the system would be flawed in South Africa, but in America it works. And so, you know, when I think of flawed, it's like I'm thinking of something. And at the end of today, I want us not to think that, oh, we're flawed, that God can't use us. I want us to think that, yes, I may be flawed. I may fall short, but God can work in that and God can work through that. Because every single one of us have a story about, you know, the highs and lows of life and our journey with Christ, and how does that look? And in our fallen nature, what is He calling us to? What has He called us to do, right? And a lot of the time we may be called to something, but we think, oh, I can't do that because I'm flawed, because I'm fallen, because maybe if Lord, I'll be used by you if I know my Bible better. If I stop doing what I should do and do what I don't do, all that, then God, then I'll use you. When I have more time, then I'll be used by you. And so we kind of always holding back, and God said, no, in spite of where you find yourself, I can use you. And so I want to start off with this really interesting story, but I wanted to start off by saying, do any of you guys have a nickname? Any of you have a nickname? Like a term of endearment, maybe with family or friends. I heard a chuckle at the back there. Maybe some nicknames that you got given isn't very nice, you know. But we all have nicknames. I'm sure Jen's brother, who's going to be here in a couple over Easter, he gives nicknames to everyone. I wouldn't be surprised if he gives half of you nicknames by the time he leaves. You know, it's like a term of endearment. It's people call me Blackbeard or War or Waza or the African Apostle, you know, or the Bishop Blackbeard. Now, I've made those ones up, you know. But we have nicknames, and it's a sign of endearment, of love and whatever. And I want to start off by reading from John chapter 1. So John chapter 1, verse 40. It starts off by saying, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, was one of the two who had heard what John had said and who was following Jesus. I love it how Andrew was started off by saying, this is Andrew, this is Simon Peter's brother. It's kind of like saying, this is Tim, Jesse's boyfriend, or this is Warren, Jennifer's husband. You know, it's like straight away he's told that, it's Simon Peter's brother, you know. And I was thinking about that because God will place us in areas and in shadows, and are we comfortable with where He's placed us, whatever that is? Are we comfortable with that? Now, Andrew, he meets with Jesus, and he said the first thing that Andrew did, this is in verse 40 of John chapter 1. The first thing that Andrew did was to find his brother Simon and tell him, we have found the Messiah. Did you love that? Like, this is just evangelism 101. He meets with Jesus, he sees it, and he says, I'm going to go straight away and I'm going to tell my brother that we found the Messiah. The Messiah that we've been waiting for, that we've heard about, all that. We found him. It says here that we found the Messiah, that is the Christ, and he brought him to Jesus. And I think at that point, Simon had zero choice to say no to his brother, you know. It's like, you coming with me. Whether you like it or not, you coming with me. And it says here that we found the Messiah. I love that. I love just the heart of that. We talk about evangelism on Thursday nights. Our next series after Life Edits is about evangelism, and often we may be embarrassed to share because we feel like, well, I'm flawed, and if people know that I'm flawed, they won't want to be part of what I do. And it's like that should be our something that we do is, yes, I'm flawed, but God is working in me and through me in spite of me sometimes, you know. And I love it that Andrew, the first thing he does is he goes, finds his brother Simon and says, we found the Messiah, and you're going to go with him, and you're going to go be with me. So this is what it says, verse 42, and he says he brought him to Jesus. Jesus looked at him and said, he's looking at Simon. He said, you are Simon, son of John. This is how they would refer to each other back in Bible times. You are, Simon, son of John, etc. But he says, that's your birth name, Simon, son of John. And you'll be called Cephas, which we translate into Peter. So straight away, he gives him a nickname. Straight away, he sees Simon, and he says, from now on, your name's going to be Simon Peter. From now on, you're going to be Peter. And so he totally changes his name, which I love. And I love I love Peter. I love his zeal. I love his enthusiasm. I love his willingness to put himself out there. I love the fact that he puts himself out there for Jesus. You know, I'm encouraged by his boldness, by his encouraged, you know, just spurred on by his boldness. He would always put himself out there to be used by God. And yet I also appreciate the way that the Spirit has preserved the stories of Peter's zeal and faith, and also his stories pretty much soon after of his lack of faith, his failures, his shortcomings, and how he didn't overcome them. You know, if we think of Peter, I think of him as being bold, but I also think of him as being flawed. And you know, one of the stories that we might look at is Peter was the first disciple to proclaim Jesus as the Christ, right? For which Jesus referred to him as blessed. You're blessed because of that. But soon after that, you know, he didn't like the type of Christ that the Father wanted. And so after that, Jesus says, "Get behind me, Satan." You know, so he was bold in declaring that, but also he was flawed, you know, because he didn't like the type of Christ that the Father was requiring of him. Peter was the only disciple to ask to join Jesus when he walked out on water. You know, all the disciples in the water, and Peter says, "If it's you, tell me to come out." He says, "Come," and he goes there, and so he's the only one. But soon after leaving the boat, he starts sinking when he takes his eyes off Jesus, and his faith had failed him. So he was bold, yet he was flawed. He was the only one who drew the sword and struck one of the men coming to arrest Jesus. You know, being willingly apparent to die. You know, before his teacher was taken captive, he would die in that process. But not much time after that, he denied Jesus 3 times, presumably for fear of death, for which he wept bitterly afterwards. You see, how often do we begin with the best of intentions in our life and these lofty ideas that we have for our ministry or our legacy or our Christian journey, only to find ourselves lacking? How often do we feel like we finally seen progress in our personal sanctification, only to lapse? I mean, how many times in our journey, our discipleship journey that we're on, how many times do we maybe talk big but live small? It's like, Lord, if only I do this, then we could, and then you find yourself, you know, lapsing again. You find yourself doubting yourself again, or doubting that God can use you again, until you really start again and start that process again. And often we give up because we feel like we've gone through this so many times, and so we're thinking, what's the point of doing it, you know? But I love Peter, because what it shows me with Peter is that if he can use Peter, he can use me, he can use any of us, despite of us sometimes, despite of our failures, our flaws, our past, the history that we have. And part of the beauty of Peter's witness was that he wasn't perfect, and yet God used him in the most amazing ways. He wasn't perfect. He had so many things that he was, you know, just lacked and was flawed in, and yet he loved God. And Peter knew that, and in spite of his faults and his inadequacies, God used him in the most amazing ways, in spite of him being flawed. And I think when we think of being flawed, we shouldn't think of it as I can't be used by God because I'm flawed. We should say, yeah, I'm flawed. I've got failures. I've got a past. I've got things I'm not proud of. I do things that I don't want to do, and I don't do things that I should do. But I know that God's working in me, and I know He's working through me. And so in spite of that, He's going to use me, because often we might wait and say, well, if when I'm a bit better, then God can use me. When I'm a bit more holy, whatever that means, then God can use me. When I'm closer to God, then He'll use me. And know what Jesus is saying is in spite of all of that, come, follow me. In spite of everything, follow me. That's what He's basically saying. This is how Timothy Keller writes about it. He says, the Christian gospel is that I'm so flawed that Jesus had to die for me. Yet I'm loved and valued that Jesus was glad to die for me. This leads to deep humility and deep confidence at the same time. Don't you love that? So who here feels like a failure sometimes? Who here has failed or done things that they're not proud of? You know, I'm sure all of us have. We've probably got things that we're not proud of. There's things in our life that we wish we could take back. We wish we could go back to that place that maybe where it all started and change it, you know. But it's hard. And then I found this writing on the internet. I don't even know who wrote it, but I just love the word. And it says failure pokes the tender ribs of memory. Don't you love that picture? Failure pokes the tender ribs of memory. We far too forget the the things that we've done well, but our failures, those come back time and again. It pokes the tender ribs of memory. It makes us wince. It's too many storms sinking. You'll never wash my feet. Miscalculations of my faith. This is all talking about Peter. Too many, though everyone else forsakes you, I never will. Debacles of our pride. Too many, you'll never go to the cross. Get behind me, moments to count. Too many, Gethsemane sword, blood-cut miscalculations of zeal. Too many, I tell you, I don't know this man, betrayals and fears, and sometimes the fault isn't ours, but the bruise still swells. Sometimes we want to do something, and then we can't, and then we lack, and then we're just not bold enough, or we just don't trust God enough, or our faith is lacking, or we remember, we think of the times when things didn't work out well, and so that grips us with fear now because I don't want to put myself out there in case I fail. And can I tell you, the wonderful thing about God is He'll give us another opportunity because He loves us so much. He loves us so much that if we fail, He'll keep coming back and giving us another opportunity because He loves us so much that He does that. Think of, this is just something that just came to me. Think of like when your kid is young or they're trying to do something for like the first time. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of something like walking or riding a bike. If I said to my boys, okay, I'm going to teach you to ride a bike and you're going to sit in that seat behind me and I'm going to ride the bike for you. And every time we ride the bike, that's where they are. And if I had to say to them ride the bike, they wouldn't know how to do it because they've never done it themselves. But God gives us so many opportunities to be like, yeah, go again. And and then they might fall. Okay, we get up again. We're going to try again. Okay, just remember to keep it straight while you do it. Okay, good. And then they try again, and then they might fall, and then they keep trying, and eventually they get it, and then they're going. And the joy that you see on a kid, the same as walking. Like a kid doesn't just wake up starting to walk one day and start running a marathon. No, they get a bit wobbly and they're walking like this, and you see them, and then they suddenly walk, and their face is so happy. We saw the video of Cole when he first started to walk the other day. It was so cute. And imagine if he's like a 10-year-old still trying to walk. You'd be like, what? No, but you've at the time when it was right, you led him out the nest and you say walk, and they walk. That's what God does to us with our faith, with our journey. He's saying yeah. And sometimes we might fail, sometimes we might fall because we're flawed. We've fallen human beings, all of us. But He gives us okay, come. You're good to go again. I believe in you this time. Like with your kid, I believe that you're going to get it this time. Even if you think, I don't know if it's too early for them to try walk, but you believe in them, that they're going to get it right one day. And you know what? They do. And it's beautiful. That's what He's saying to us. This is what He's saying. And in these moments of Peter, of all his failings that he did, in that failure that he was feeling, he didn't need to seize the narrative. He didn't need to protect his image. He didn't need to preserve the brand of the original disciples. He didn't need to get back to his old platform. No, he needed to go back to the start. He needed to go back to the beginning. And this is a story that Jesus is teaching Peter and also all of us who failed, is that we need to go back to the start. In an article in Psychology Today, Dr. Ellen Hendrickson writes about an anniversary reaction, which he defines as an annual echo of a trauma or loss. It's a time when your body remembers what it has endured at that time, either emotionally, spiritually, physically, or all of the above. Do any of us have an anniversary reaction? A time that we are fearful of, a date that when we know it's coming, we get very worried about it because we know what that day represents, and it fills up with anxiety because of what happened on that date, or a loss that happened, or something that we did, or something that was done to us, or all these type of things. And an annual echo of a trauma or a loss, a painful memory, a date that we don't want to relive again. It's a date that's hard for us to process. It's they say that time heals, but it just can't for you. It still feels so real, even though it might have happened a long time ago. It's still real for you because you're in that annual echo, that trauma that you have. Now, when we look at Peter, we see an emotionally charged individual. We see someone who would lash out to protect Jesus. We see someone who was bold in his faith and flawed at the same time. But when I see Peter, and I think of him with the crucifixion, the death, the burial, the resurrection, I think he would have been reminded of his own trauma and loss in those moments. In every even as those moments were occurring, but also every anniversary reaction after that, because as it was predicted, he would deny his Lord. He would deny Jesus. He wasn't there for the crucifixion, the death, the burial. He wasn't. It says that he was. It said he wept bitterly. He wasn't there. We don't know where he was, but he wasn't there. And so I can imagine it would have been painful for him afterwards to relive that every time. When it was during the Passover, to relive, I wasn't with Jesus in that time. I should have been there, but I wasn't. I shouldn't have denied. If only I could take my life back. If only I could go back to that time and that little girl asked me if I knew. I wish I said yes, but I said no. And I said no 3 times, and Jesus told me I would. And he probably wishes he could go back there. But Jesus does this beautiful thing with him, because when we look at Peter and we see the day that he met with Jesus, and Jesus said to him, your name is going to be Simon Peter from now on. When Jesus saw him, he wasn't just seeing who he was now. He was seeing who he's going to become one day. He was not just seeing the man that he is now, but he's seen the man that he'll become if he puts his faith and his trust in me. And this is how Michael Card says it in his book, A Fragile Stone, The Emotional Life of Simon Peter. He's talking about Simon Peter's passion. He said his was a passion that could murderously lash out single-handedly against 200 armed men, the 200 men that came to arrest Jesus. That's the passion that this man had. Or it could smolder, still white hot, for the decades during which he left home and family again and again to speak Jesus' word and do his work. That's the passion that Jesus was looking after. Not just that initial reaction, but also the passion that would be white hot for the decades to come afterwards, where Peter would leave his family and his home to go out and do Jesus' mission on work, to spread his word and do his work. And that's what he was looking for. And so after this whole thing of him denying and seeing his own flawed nature, there was a song that we used to love watching, if you watch the thing on. It's from Coldplay, called The Scientist, and the whole song is kind of done in reverse. And it's a cool song, and he talks about going back to the start. And I think that's what Jesus was doing here. He's going back to the start with Peter. He, in this time where they have this interaction afterwards when Jesus was resurrected, which we're going to go through, he wants to remind us of where it all began with us. Because often our relationship with Jesus, it starts off well. We're like, yes, and hallelujah, I'll do everything for you. But then what happens? Life happens. We fail. We flawed. We realize the things that I was doing, I'm kind of still doing. And I thought my life would be totally different, but I didn't realize how hard it would be to change. And so then we kind of settle in this mediocrity of our Christian journey. We kind of settle in this low grade relationship with Jesus, where I had faith one day. I was doing bold things. I was praying for people. But now your life happens, and I don't think I'm worthy enough. I don't think I'm strong enough. I don't think I know enough. I don't think my relationship with is close enough. And so we drift away from him. Jesus never drifts from us, but we kind of drift. Think of if you're on a paddleboard out in the ocean, and it just drifts slowly. It doesn't happen overnight. It's slowly. Oh, and then suddenly you start realizing that initial zeal that we had for reading the Bible every day, and I haven't opened this for a while. I haven't prayed for a while because I don't know if God comes through anymore, because he didn't answer my prayer the way I wanted him to. And so what Jesus is doing here, I think, was what he wants to do with all of us, is take us back to the beginning of that initial moment that we had with him. And so we see here Peter goes back after the death and burial and all that. Peter goes back to what's familiar with him. He goes back to his home, and he's sitting with the guys, and he says, I'm going fishing. And they say, I'm going fishing with you, because that's what he knows. It's familiar for him. And so he goes and, excuse me, he goes fishing, and this is familiar. The Sea of Galilee is familiar for him. He was a fisherman, and so it's familiar. The smell of the boats, the smell of the sea, the smell of the fish, it's familiar. So it's a far cry from Jerusalem, and where he wept bitterly. It's a far cry from that. And so this is what he knows. And so often we'll go back to what's familiar to us, because we know it. We can understand it. And maybe we need to go back to where it all began, to where it's familiar for us, And maybe even sometimes we need to go back to those moments where we failed, where we see that we are flawed and there's something in our life. And Jesus intends us not to escape those memories, but for us to see more of him in those memories. Because at the moment, maybe when we look back at those parts where we have failed, we don't see Jesus there. We maybe blame him for that, right? We maybe think, Jesus, where were you in those moments? He's taking us back there because he wants us to see more of him in those moments. Do you remember those moments? Do you remember where it all started? Do you remember what happened back in those moments? You see, he said, I'm going fishing, and we'd lived this scene already in Luke 5 when this is how he called to, he said, come, you're going to be fishers of men. It was so cool because I taught this exact story on Wednesday at SC about how he called his first disciples and Simon Peter, and come, you're going to be fishers of men. And now this is no deja vu moment, that the same thing is going to happen now, because this is orchestrated like a divine providence, that they're going to meet again to where it all began. They're going to meet again back where Jesus first met with him. Back to this memory before the power failure of his own failure. He's remembering the scenes of life with him. He's taking you back to where it all began, back to where it was new and exciting. And I don't know what it means like for you, but I remember being young in my faith when I was a teenager. Like everything, you saw God in everything. You were so excited. You thought it was the best kept secret. You wanted to tell everyone about it because you didn't want to hold it to yourself. And then we kind of lose sight of that after a while because we kind of life happens. Hurt happens, failure happens, our flawed nature happens, and so he's kind of remembering this time, and this whole thing happens, and Jesus is on the on the side there, and Peter sees him, and what does Peter do? He jumps out of the boat straight away and runs towards him. Maybe there's times in your life where we had this bold faith, these acts of faith at the beginning, like where when you went over your head, and you were like, Jesus, you have to come through for me because I'm over my head, and he does. They break bread and have this wonderful time, and it actually says in Luke 6. And in John 6, and in Luke 24, it talks about they're remembering the earlier wonders that they had. Do you remember such moments of startling wonder with Jesus years ago with him? Do you remember those moments where he would come through, those moments where you boldly took out that step of faith and he answered you? Do you remember? That's what they're doing here. They're remembering those earlier wonders. And all this happened around a charcoal fire. I've mentioned this before, but I just love this visual idea of it. It all happened around this charcoal fire, and the Greek word for charcoal fire only happens one other time in the whole of Scripture. It's in John 18, verse 18, where Peter denied Jesus around the charcoal fire. That's what it actually says. It was around a charcoal fire that this happened. Now that fire, that original fire that Peter denied Jesus, and there's a charcoal fire. That original fire, someone else had started, and someone else lit that original fire of betrayal. But this one, Jesus prepared. Now, if we look at the first fire, this is crazy. Luke 22, verse 61. Jesus is there, and Peter's there, and the little girl is saying, do you know this man? Do you know this man? Do you know this man? And it says in Luke 22:61, he says, I don't know this man. I don't know who you're talking about. Just as he was speaking, the rooster crowed. The Lord turned and looked straight at Peter. And Peter remembered the word that was spoken to him. Can you imagine him in that moment? I don't know this man. And as soon as he says it a third time, he looks across this courtyard, and straight away he locks eyes with Jesus. And he remembered what Jesus said straight away, eye to eye. Looks at him, and he remembered what Jesus had told him. And his bold zeal was like, I'll never do that. And he does. And it says he left and he wept bitterly. But you see, now this fire that we see now on the side of the Sea of Galilee, Jesus had prepared this charcoal fire. He's taken him back to the beginning. And this might be the only step forward, is to meet Jesus again by this charcoal fire. Often we might look at these, we don't want to recover because, we don't want to meet with Jesus there because I'm moving forward and I want to deny it, or I want to blame others, or whatever the case is. But no, Jesus is inviting us back to this, sit with him around this charcoal fire and realize what we need most is this grace-learned strength that comes from from seeing more of Jesus in that moment rather than those things around us, those things that we failed at, that flawed nature that we have, those mistakes that we've made, to see more of Jesus in that, to then see them. And that's what he's doing here with Peter. And then Jesus does something. I've spoken about this before, but I missed this. I missed this part. He does something so subtle that I missed it. They have this conversation. They're cooking around this charcoal fire. They're remembering how it all began with them. They're remembering the wonderful things that they've done together, the wonders that Jesus did while Peter was with him. They remember all of this. And then Jesus does something so subtle that I think we miss a lot of the time. I missed it. He says, Simon, son of John. This is Luke 21:15. He says, Simon, son of John. This must have startled Peter. Because how long has it been since he called him Simon, son of John? Remember, this was right at the beginning when they met a few years before, and he said, Simon, son of John, from now on your name's going to be Simon Peter. Now many years later, he's calling him by his name, the name that they first met, that name. He's saying, Simon, son of John. This must have startled Peter. Peter must have thought, like, hang on, how does this, what's happening? And then he asks him some questions, and all the questions is about love. And I was thinking love is a sign of our spiritual maturity. Love is our response, right? When people see us as a church, I want people to see us as that's a church that love God and love his people. That should be it. We love God with everything that we are, and we love people around us. And if we're honest, it's easy to love people that are like us, but people that are different to us, it's hard sometimes because I wouldn't have done it like they did. Oh, do you know what they've done? Can I tell you? I'm so grateful for the life that God has given me. I can't even comprehend someone that's done something really bad, that it caused a lot of mistakes, a lot of consequences. But all I know that I've never been in that situation. All I know is that I've never been in that situation where I need to make that call, knowing that maybe one side of it that I've never been in the wrong place at the wrong time where it's had these long-term consequences. But you know what happens in our life? We see someone that's maybe different to us or whatever, and we put them here. Because like, oh, no, we need to love. Love is a sign of our spiritual maturity. We need to love all people, regardless of who they are, what they do, lifestyle that they have, mistakes that they've made. We need to look and say, like, Lord, you love me, and I'm flawed. And you love them, and they're just as flawed. And in your eyes, it's all the same. And so I want to love people as much as you love them. And so he takes Peter back to the beginning when they first met. And he says to him, Simon, son of John. And then he asks him the same question. You know, after they've remembered the life that they had together, about all the memories that they've got. When he's spoken his name, now comes the same question 3 times. It's not, Peter, do you believe me? It's not, Peter, will you go out for the gospel for me? It's not like, Peter, will you leverage a platform for me? Will you promise never to sin again? Peter, it's not like, Peter, will you get back to work and get back to the ministry that you have and prove all your detractors wrong? It was none of that. It was what? It was, Peter, do you love me? Simon, son of John, do you love me? That's where it starts. It always starts there. Do you love me? Do you love me more than these? It's a wonderful, beautiful. There's so many layers in that conversation. But he's basically saying, do you love me? Not saying, will you go back and have some followers for me? Will you make... No, it starts with love. Do you love me? Do you love me than all the mistakes that you've made? Do you love me more than any of that? And afterwards, you know, there's no feed my sheep without first coming to terms with where you are from, how you met with Jesus, the wonder and the needed rescues of you being with him, what your name is, being around the charcoal fire and realizing all of that and the sins that you have towards him and the condition of love in your soul. There's none of that feed my sheep without that at the beginning. And a lot of us don't want that because it's hard, it's messy, we feel exposed when it happens, but yet it has to happen because Jesus is saying, do you love me? And the response of that is, okay, now you'll follow me. Do we love him, and is he more preferable than anything else on this earth? And Peter says yes and means it. And then they have this curious conversation with John, and basically restoring Peter doesn't mean that failure is not going to happen, or Peter's ability to fail. They have this curious conversation, but in the end, Jesus basically just says to him, follow me. You see, do you love me? Now follow me. Alicia, you can come up. You see, sometimes even people that have been forgiven will repeat what breaks us. How many times in your Christian journey it's happened with me? It's like, Lord, I promise I'll never do that again. And what happens? We break that promise. Lord, I'll never do that again. And then we do it because we're flawed human beings. But yet God gives us all the opportunities to love him. He's saying, like, do you love me? Okay, well then follow me. And so we look at Peter and we see this flawed man, this man who had highs and lows, this man who would do anything for Jesus and then deny him. He would jump out of the boat to follow him and then sink at the same time. Would attack these but then deny Jesus. He was a man of bold faith, but at the same time he had this flawed nature, which I can just resonate with, which all of us should be able to resonate with. Because when you look at Scripture, it's men and women who are flawed, but loved Jesus, loved him, and wanted to be closer with him and wanted to walk a journey with him. And so even in spite of what they're going through, they would walk. And that doesn't mean that we just sit back and say, well, I'm flawed and nothing can change. But no, the closer we get with Jesus, the more we follow him, the more we realize how flawed we are and how much we need to change. And we walk even closer with him. And so at the end, Peter actually writes about this in 1 Peter 5, verse 6 to 9. He says, humble yourselves. He says, be sober-minded, be watchful. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. Resist him. You see, this isn't someone who's squeaky clean. This isn't someone who's a new Christian. This is someone who's got scrapes on the soles of their feet, following Jesus. This is someone who's bruised and battered, who's wrestled with the devil and thrashed firsthand with him, where he can say, humble yourselves, be watchful. He's looking for someone to devour, resist him. You see, this is someone who's been redeemed, a voice that's been redeemed of someone who has failed. And I think we as a church need more of that. We need more of people who like Peter said, like, listen, I failed. I own up to it. I made a mistake. He bitter wept for the hurt for the person that he'd become. That's why he wasn't there. He wasn't there when Jesus was crucified and all the rest. He wasn't there because he couldn't believe the person he'd become. And so we need more of this. We need more of these broken sages that know Jesus not just by creed, but by the cries of their own souls. And so how do we respond to this? Well, we're gonna do communion, but I wanted to just read something that I wrote before. You see, have we ever felt that we aren't worthy enough to be used by God, let alone loved by him? We just need to remember that Jesus uses a bunch of flawed people to share hope to a flawed and broken world. You see, in God we find renewal, we find mending, we find purpose. You see, and Jesus didn't call the equipped, but he equipped the called. And no matter what you've been through in life, remember that the same power that conquered the grave lives inside of you. Lives inside of you. You are worthy of life. You are worthy of God's love. You are worthy of joy. You are worthy of Jesus' sacrifice. And maybe sometimes we feel we're not worthy of his sacrifice. You know, Jesus thinks you are worthy of his sacrifice. Oh, we are worthy of a fulfilling purpose that will take you to places that you've never imagined reaching. Thank you. You're worthy, friends. Never doubt how worthy you are, because Jesus thinks that you're worthy. He came to die on the cross for you because he thinks that you are worth it. Because when Jesus sees you, he doesn't just see who you are now. He sees that who you can become if you put your faith and your trust in him. He sees you. He sees like Simon Peter. I can see what you're going to become. I can see that this is going to be a passion that's going to stay white hot for the decades to come. Not the immediate like this and then we go, this is going to be. So that's what he sees. Can you see it, friends? Do you see what Jesus sees? When we look at the echo, when we were singing now, and I was talking about the anniversary echo, what's our echo? Like, do we echo Jesus in our life? When people see us, do they see Jesus' love for them? Are we echoing Jesus in our life? Wherever we find ourselves, like, I know it's easy on a Sunday, but what about in the week when we're with people, with work colleagues, or with our family? What about in places that we go to often? Whatever the case is, are we echoing Jesus in our life where people will not be surprised if we tell them we're a Christian? Oh, you're a Christian? Oh, I would never have guessed. are we echoing Jesus in our life? Are we living in such a way that we are that we know that we are worthy of His love? Because friends, that will change everything in our life. Everything. If you truly see that, yes, I am flawed. Yes, I do make mistakes, but God is so much greater than all of that. And so I'm going to live my life pursuing Him even more, because not in spite of that, but because of all of that, I'm going to learn to go even faster to help. And so at the end, we've got these redeemed voices of people saying, yes, I have failed. Yes, I've made mistakes. But you know what? God is even greater than any of that. And I'm here to help you on your journey. What a beautiful picture it is. And so when I think of communion, which we're going to do now, I think of both remembering and also think of reflecting. I think of the cost that it did for Jesus to die on the cross for you and for me, but also think of the promise of our discipleship. So when we read in Matthew 26, from 26 to 28, it says, while they were eating, Jesus took the bread, and after he'd given thanks, he broke it and gave it to his disciples, saying, take and eat, this is my body. Can we stand together, friends? Let's stand together while we do this. See, I'm reminded of just the cost. The cost of this journey that we're on. And Jesus knew the cost when he came. It says in Scripture that it was for the joy sent before him, he endured the cross. Oh, friends, it was a joy for him because he could see us, not just who we are now, but also who we can become if we follow him, if we trust him, if we put our hope and our faith in him. And so when we do communion, we remember in that cost of what Jesus did for us. So let's eat together. At the same time, it said he took the cup, and when he had given thanks, he gave it to them, saying, drink of it, all of you. This is the blood of my covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. Jesus, we love you. We honor you this morning, your sacrifice for everyone here this morning. And so we thank you for paying the penalty that we deserved, but you did it with joy because you love us so much. And so as we partake in the communion, Lord Jesus, I just even pray right now that Holy Spirit, you maybe even just speaking to people and showing them maybe where there are places where they just can't release to you. Maybe there's places where they have that anniversary echo. Maybe there's places where they just feel so fallen that they can't get closer to you. There's something holding them back from a deeper relationship. And I pray that even in those memories, in those thoughts, that we all see you more clearly in that, because you want to see us in those moments, in that where it all began, in those moments where we first met with you. So friends, let's drink together. So as we close in a song now, friends, I just pray that you will just go back to those parts where maybe something's holding you back. Release that to Jesus. Release it to him. Give it over to him. He wants it. He desires for us to see more of him in those moments where we feel like we failed, where we feel flawed. Oh, friends, that's not the label that he wants. You're a mighty man or woman of God. That's the label that he wants to give you, not that we are fallen. Yes, we might have failed, but he wants us to see the true identity that we have, and that is as a son and as a daughter of him. And so, Father, be with us and speak to us as we sing this last song.
Before our usher teams come forward to receive our tithes and offerings and response cards, here's a few important things happening with our CE family.
You don't want to miss Leader X. Gain leadership wisdom from special guest speakers Justin Hamilton, Christian Mungai, Leon Van Royen, our CE leaders, and experience a night of worship with your CE family. It's all happening February 24th to the 26th at your central campus, and you're invited. Check out the website for more details and to reserve your spot. Bring a group of friends to sit with you because these transforming days will leave you filled up so you can go out and live your God-given purpose. Do you want to know how to take steps to grow in your relationship with Jesus? Then Growth Class is for you. Growth Class will equip you with the steps you can take to experience more in your walk with Jesus and help you get more connected within the CE family. To let us know that you're interested in attending the next Growth Class on Sunday, March 27th, write Growth Class on your response card. As our ushers come forward to collect our response cards and receive our tithes and offerings, when you give to CE, you give through CE to show God's love in practical ways, locally and globally, walking out your faith and helping people take their next steps with Him. When you open your hands to give, not only does our church communities and cities change, but you change. Thank you for your generosity to God through CE and helping more people experience a full life in Jesus Christ.
Thank you so much for being on mission with us to help more people experience a full life in Jesus Christ.
This is the day that you have made. Whatever comes, I won't complain. For all my hope is in your name, and now your joy awaits my praise. I give thanks for all you have done, and I will sing of your mercy and your love. Your love is unfailing. Lord, I am grateful. When I was down, you brought me out. You set my feet on higher ground. So here I stand. You are my God. Your faithfulness, my solid rock. I give thanks for all you have done, and I will sing of your mercy and your love. Your love is unfailing. Lord, I am grateful. I give thanks for all you have done. I won't forget all the battles you have won. Your love is unfailing. Lord, I am grateful. I give thanks for all you have done, and I will sing of your mercy and your love. Your love is unfailing. Lord, I am grateful. I give thanks for all you have done. I won't forget all the battles you have won. Your love is unfailing. Lord, I am grateful. Lord, I am grateful.
Hey, thanks for joining us today for Church Experience Online. We hope this service has been a blessing to you and it's been spiritually impacting in your life. Hey, before you head out, just a couple real quick things. If you made a commitment to Jesus today, scan this QR code, fill out this form, and we would love to reach out to you and see how we can serve you, how we can help you move closer to Him. Also, I want to encourage you to hit that subscribe button so you can stay with us each and every week and never miss a service. Or you can head over to our Church Experience website where we have all kinds of information to help you experience a full life in Jesus Christ. Have a great week. We'll see you next Sunday.